Hi everybody, this is Richard Sleigh, and today just thought I'd have a little bit of fun talking about why music theory is so confusing and some things you can do about it. I've tried to learn music theory many times over the years, and I've always gotten discouraged and confused and ended up feeling like I was stupid or something. And part of the reason for that, I believe, is the way it's generally taught. Like, for example, one of the most important things you need for a solid grounding in music theory is understanding the major scale, because you can pretty much explain anything by starting with the major scale, at least in terms of developing melodies, developing chords, developing progressions, all that kind of stuff. So, a typical introduction to music theory is the major scale is a 7-note scale. That's a 7-note scale. So, it's not really a 7-note scale. A full, to me, major scale is 8 notes. But then they get into the description of the structure of the scale, and it's whole step, half step, whole step, half step. For some reason, my brain just couldn't process that. And then finally, I was given a structure that made sense to me, and I'm going to get around to that in a minute. But some of the other confusion that I've had comes from using familiar symbols like the letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, only now we're using them in different ways and they mean different things. And you have to get used to the way these things are used to describe music and forget about what they mean in mathematics or as something that you make words out of. So let me give you an example. If you map out the major scale and you call it by scale degrees, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the distance between 1 and 2 is a whole step. The distance between 2 and 3 is a whole step. The distance between 3 and 4 is a half step. So right there, you're getting into these. We're no longer in Kansas. We're now in a different world where numbers don't mean what numbers usually mean. You know, you wouldn't count 1, 2, 3, 3.5. But that's kind of what you're doing, and the 2 and there's no clue in these numbers that's what's going on. You have to memorize it. And the other thing that happens is a similar thing. If you start with your basic scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and we call that the easiest one to learn because there are no sharps and flats. And so you got C to D, a whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F, half step. So once again, you have to memorize these things. You have to get used to hearing between E and F, between B and C, C, D, E, F, F to G's whole step, G, A, whole step, A, B, whole step, B to C, half step. So this all gets really, if I try to hold that in my mind, it doesn't work for very long. Let me show you a different way to think about the major scale. I learned this from a blues musician, Scott Ainsley. We were both teaching at a folk retreat, and he showed this, he mapped this out, and I thought, well, this is really cool. And for the first time, I really feel like I understand the structure of the major scale. And this is what he did. He went like this. Here we go. we'll get the key of C, C, D, E, F, leave a space, G, A, B, C. And then you put a little tick mark over the E and the F and the B and the C. And now you have a little two-act play, and the structure of part 1 and part 2 is the same. Whole step, half step. And then another whole step, half step. Now, there is a whole step between the two of them, but that's kind of easy to remember. I can go with this. And if you play it, you can hear that structure. And now, if you add your numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you start to sing these instead of just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, this is super cool. And another thing about it that's really pretty cool is that if you learn this scale here, the C scale, you've also learned half of the G scale, G, A, B, C, D, E, make that an E, F. Okay, now if we remember this structure, go back here and we remember that between the 3 and the 4 and the 7 and the 8, it's a half step. We're going to have to do something here to make this work, because here's the half step here, and this is a whole step from F to G. So in order to make the G scale work by following the structure of this scale, we have to raise this note, because you're not going to flatten the G because it's where you end up. So now you have F sharp, G. And by absorbing this structure and starting to look at other scales and keeping track of where the E and the F notes end up and the B's and the C's come in the progression, everything starts to make sense. Okay, we're going to do this with the F scale now. F, G, A, B, and then here's the tail end of your F. The second half of this, the first half of the C scale is the second half of the F scale. C, D, E, F. Now we look where the B's and C's are and the E's and the F's are. And we know that to have this structure work right, we have to have a half step between here and here. So we can't raise the A to an A sharp, because now that would throw this one off. But if we can make the B flat, that brings it toward the A note, and it becomes the F scale. So this is the basic structure of the major scale. And if you think of it in these terms of these 4-note groupings and memorize that structure, whole step, half step, it's a lot easier, at least for me, it was a lot easier to keep track of this basic structure. And the other thing that grounds this for me is to sing it and to play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the first thing I can give you that may help if you've struggled with this in the past, remembering that formula of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. It's hard to even pronounce. You just remember this: 2 4-note sequences and a whole step in between them. So that's my first suggestion, is to do that, to get used to the C scale, and you note in the structure where the B and the C are and the E and the F. So all of the rest of the scales are built around this exact same logic. Here's the other way that you can really work toward embedding the logic and the structure of this C scale into your head. This is an inexpensive keyboard, and I found these stickers online that show you the notes of the piano keyboard. And so you can just use them until you don't need them anymore. But here's your C scale. And with this arrangement here, you can take anything that somebody describes to you with the notes. You can find the notes, you can play them, you can sing them as you play. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And if you want to play that F scale, A, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And obviously, you don't have to be a great singer to use the process of singing to get your bearings. So that's a couple ways to get a little deeper into the structure of the major scale and to really start to get the feel of it. When I first started trying to learn music theory, it didn't make sense to me for a long time. And part of the reason why it didn't make sense is because I wasn't making enough use of my senses. I wasn't playing everything that was being described. I wasn't singing everything that is being described. And one way to avoid being confused is to insist on everything that you learn. Tell yourself, I don't really know this until I can sing it or play it or create the sound one way or another. Because then you've got that connection between marks on paper and words and descriptions of the notes and the actual sound of the notes themselves. Start with the C major scale and memorize a couple of things instead of a whole ton of things. Memorize that between the E and the F and the B and the C, there are half steps. Looking at the piano keyboard gives you another mental model that gives you a very clear visual of some aspects of the major scale. And then using numbers gives you another way to think about the major scale. And as you go further on, you'll understand that all of these things that people describe in scale degrees, like flat 7, flat 5, flat 3, you can figure out what they mean now because you can sing that scale 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, flat 3 is in between, and da 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 That's the flat 3. And you can do the same thing on the piano. C scale. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Half step. Flat 3, 3, 4, 5. Flat 5, 5, 6, 7. Flat 7, 7, 8. And by just simultaneously 1, 2, 3, C, D, E, it puts a sound in your head and it gets you away from trying to think about these notes as an abstract idea. Okay, I hope they found that useful, and if you did, let me know. There's a place down below for comments. You can also subscribe to my channel. You can also subscribe for notifications. I'm going to be talking more about this. I think this is a good place to quit. Once again, thanks for listening. I'll be back in a week and with more ideas. Hope you enjoyed this.